new figures released last month have revealed that sales of electric cars have fallen by 15% because drivers continue to opt for vehicle powered by petrol or diesel. So the news comes shortly after the Prime Minister's announcement that he was delaying the ban on new petrol and diesel cars until 2035, a decision that was largely welcomed by motorists but criticised by the motoring industry. OK, so is this just people in a capitalist society voting with their wallets and saying, you know what, I've been given a choice about what I want to buy, I'm not buying the electric cars, and frankly, is that why they're trying to force you to get them? Danny Kelly joins me now, motoring journalist, friend of the show. Danny, thank you very much. Great to have you on. So does this not just prove, then, that actually, unless the British public were forced at kind of pseudo gunpoint to get these electric cars, they just wouldn't bother getting them?
Generally speaking, I think you're correct. There's a carrot and a stick approach, and the carrot has been delayed by 5 years. That's being kicked down the road to 2035, and obviously the stick has followed some 5 years later in alignment with the whole of the European Union with the ban of sales on petrol and diesel. If you want to buy an electric car, Patrick, you're generally speaking, you've got a couple of quid anyway. I would say that the overwhelming majority of the new car market don't want to buy electric cars. Whether they've got a few bob or not, basically it's because of the infrastructure when it comes to charging. Only last week we were talking about punch-ups on the forecourt at service stations up and down the country. Moto, which have 49 service stations, Patrick, they're now employing charging, almost policemen, but they're civilians. They're charging marshals to make sure that there's no fury at the electric charging points. A year or so ago, the Daily Mail did a great story that up in Cumbria, there was a 6-hour wait for charging. So people coming down on Boxing Day, coming back down south, and they just couldn't get a charge. This is the gritty reality. And if someone says to you, you know, you don't need to get an electric car for another 5 years, then people are quite understandably, they're just going to vote with their feet and say, brilliant, let's just carry on driving petrol and diesel.
Yeah, 100%. And I just think it makes us much more vulnerable as a nation as well. If everything has to be essentially plugged into the national grid, if the national grid goes down, then we can't go anywhere. You know, I can see huge problems with that in the geopolitical sphere as well.
I've lost output, Patrick, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Can you hear me now or not? No? No.
I can't hear you now, Patrick.
That's all right. OK. Bye, Danny. See you in a bit. Right, Danny Kelly there, motoring journalist, briefly. Can I just enlighten you with this story from Glasgow? So a motorist from Glasgow couldn't get his EV, electric vehicle, to brake. So instead, he was trapped in his moving vehicle until police were forced to take drastic action. The Scottish man said that he was kidnapped by his own runaway electric car, forcing him to dodge red lights and roundabouts and call the police, who decided that their only option was to ram it off the road to stop it. Can you imagine? I mean, firstly, we know that this film is already being made starring Nicolas Cage, don't we? So that's happening. Him on the phone to the police. God, I'm in this car. I would love it, by the way, if they crashed his car and then afterwards they did him for being on the phone whilst he was driving. You can see that happening. Danny Kelly's back. Danny, there he is. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, loud and clear. I was just listening to the end of your story there. I missed the first half, Patrick, but I'll tell you something even funnier. A pal of mine who's got a 70-grand Tesla was taking the family up to Edinburgh. He was 60 miles away. The range said he had 75 miles left on one of the hottest days of the year, and he had to turn the air conditioning off and the entertainment system off because that was going to drain the battery. He reckoned that if he was driving at night time, Patrick, with his headlights on, the xenon lights, he wouldn't have made it to Edinburgh.
All these things that you just don't want to have to think about. And I think, really, Danny, this is why we are kind of being seriously nudged in the direction of the electric vehicles and all of that. There is, of course, on top of that, Danny, the argument that they're not actually that much better for the environment.
Well, of course, it takes so much CO2 to produce these things, Patrick. You have to look at about carbon offsetting, and then we look at the gritty reality of how some of the major ingredients are mined and the effects that it has on third world countries. And again, from a car dealer's perspective, besides being a motoring journalist, Patrick, not only have new car sales plummeted with electric cars over the last 12 months with used car sales, some models have depreciated up to 45, 50%. And if you are in the used car market and you fancy an electric vehicle, the car dealer is going to charge you a fortune for a warranty because the warranties are so much more expensive than petrol.
Yeah, strong stuff. Danny, thank you very much. Danny Kelly there, who's a motoring journalist. Look, I think what you get from a petrol diesel car, the vast majority of the time, is peace of mind, don't you? Now, I get that they are, well, according to a lot of studies, worse for the planet, and that if you are that way minded, that you would probably want an electric car. Fine. But they are expensive. And at the moment, when I get in my car, I don't know about you, but I can see how much fuel's in it, and I know how far I can go, and I know I can work that out. And if I get stuck in a traffic jam, or it is at night, or I need to put the aircon on, or, I want to put the entertainment system on, which, by the way, my car is just a very old-school radio, I know that that's going to be all right. That's not really going to cause me any problems at all. But I just think, especially if you had, a couple of kids in the back and you had a long journey, or it was an emergency, you've got relatives that live at the top of Scotland and you're in London and you've got to get there overnight. No, I'm sorry. For me, the electric car business, it's just, I'm not against it. I just think the technology isn't quite there yet, and it's not good enough. GB Views at gbnews.com. Get your views coming in.